Hey folks, Triple Crown here, coming to you from Vancouver, British Columbia. This is a round 10 summary of the Global War 1939. Chatting with Hilltop this week, we've got completely different strategies going on. His European axis were focused on killing Moscow. My European axis were focused on keeping the Allies out of Europe, Western Europe. And Japan, I don't know what strategy either of us were doing. Other than Calcutta is still alive and well, so we'll get there in a second. The Italians finally decided to do what the Italians like to do best in Russia, which is to can open. So they sent about 5 units here into eastern Ukraine with their entire air force. The entire Italian air force finally did something. I knew there was a reason I kept them alive, and they killed 7 combined British and Russian units that were guarding that territory. So they attacked with 5 ground units on 7, plus their air force, which came all the way from Rome over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and had a landing space. So the aircraft is now with all the Germans. So the Germans are going to make a late play to try and get Stalingrad and try to secure Leningrad. However, big task over here. I probably left it maybe around too late. We'll see. But if they're able to annex both, that's an NO bonus for Germany. Then they also could annex over here Spain and get this navy down here and all these wonderful units, and also up here in Sweden all these purple units. So now all of a sudden their navy is huge again. So sorry about the sort of displacement of pieces over here. We had a little bit of a battle going on here in Valpuri. The Russians came in with 2 infantry and armor and a fighter, and they were wiped out by 3 defending Germans. Also mutual destruction here in Bessarabia. 1 infantry killed 1 infantry, so that territory still belongs to the Germans. Over here, the British, because the channel here is now open, actually cruisers can't go through. I think it's only destroyers. No, cruisers can go through. It's just no battleships and no coastal ships can go through this little strait here of Istanbul. So they grabbed 8 ground units and they dropped them off here in the Caucasus. So if the Germans decide to come into eastern Ukraine or blitz all their fast movers to Kharkov, that means the Russians are going to have to take them out, which I don't know if they're going to have the strength to do it. And if they can't, and they go full, well, the British are going to have a follow-up of a couple armor, 6 infantry, and a couple of Turkish and British fighters up here. So that's going to be a showdown here in Kharkov or in Stalingrad. So that's going to be a very interesting battle. The Germans here, they put up a valiant effort here, but the Americans were coming with 15 loaded transports, and that was a secondary wave. The first wave was 12 British and their entire air force here. They also bombed the factory in Berlin. They bombed the factory in Western Germany the previous turn, I believe, or the 2 turns ago. So the Berlin factory suffered 5 damage. So they are putting the hurt. So Germany decided that they could not defend Paris or Western Europe any longer, cut their losses, defend Western Germany for now. They could make a late push, but they're having difficulty building 10 units per turn at this factory here in Romania, in addition to building in Stettin to keep the battle over here going in Finland. That's 3 units they can build there at the minor, and then also building in Western Germany in Paris. They have not been able to, other than build the ground units, they have not been able to, they've been building defensive units, but go on the offense. Now, in this entire Navy here, which outclasses the German Navy by about 8 units now that these aircraft carriers have come across. So they are safe. In the next turn, all of these British aircraft, if they want, can land on the American carriers, which would make it even more secure. So this German Navy who's been sort of keeping the Allies away for the last round or two, or maybe 3 rounds, might decide to go into the Atlantic to make some trouble, at least take away the convoy zones. Canada over here built another transport, a dude in a tank. The Americans were successful in lend-leasing the Russians. They tried to send 20 IPP, only half made it. So they built 5 more loaded transports with 5 medium armor, 2 Marines, and 3 regular infantry. Over here, because I'm excited about this, the Americans built a B-29 Super Fortress. The range on these, I think, is 8. Coming from an airbase, it might be 9. America can only build 3 of these. They're expensive, but they roll 4 dice at 4. I wanted to make it more, but Hambone told me no, it was too powerful. So America can buy these. The current playtest rules, I believe, are turn 10. So America's going to get one of these bad boys into the fight. Japan, why is America back up in the sea zone off of Western Canada? Well, that is because the Japanese decided to leave their naval base here, and they brought down all their carriers and every single ground unit they could, because it looks like, folks, they are going to make a late play for Calcutta. So some of their transports off of here on the eastern side of Tokyo could not make it all the way down to Siam, so they had to land in Manchuria. I guess they could have landed in Saigon. It doesn't really matter, because the transports next turn will not be able to hit Calcutta. Some can, but not enough to take it. However, they are setting themselves up to at least force these pesky Far East Command back to defend the base. You can see everybody's retreated home. Next turn, I think Japan can bring, or at least stack up, I think it's about 10 or 11 loaded transports, plus all their Air Force and coastal bombardment here happening. So don't know if it's going to be enough next turn. However, they did build, these 3 transports can make it to Siam next turn, because they're coming from the western side of Japan. So that would be 14 loaded transports and their entire Air Force. And currently sitting in Calcutta is 13 infantry, 7 armor, and 4 aircraft in a AAA. And so, and then the surrounding the military bases can bring another four guys home. I don't anticipate these 2 guys here surviving. Currently, the KMT is surviving. However, the Japanese finally got smart. They stacked up all of their ground units. They've got 10 ground units sitting in Shensi, which can make some punch now. They can probably take Szechuan in a turn or 2 and at least take the KMT back out of the fight. The KMT, we've amended the rules. They can come down to Burma, so they could put some ground units here if they wanted to, or if the Japanese come in, because currently now we've increased the range of the Zero fighter. So the Zero fighters, because this historically they could fly further than any other fighter in World War II, from the air base here in Siam, they can actually, because they can go 5 spaces, they can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they can land back. A lot of the other aircraft will have to land on an aircraft carrier here, unless they're able to take Burma next turn and hold on to it, which would give them a landing spot for their aircraft. And then, because the Americans are getting bold, all of these aircraft carriers in this Navy can go back up here and protect Tokyo. But they're not sure if they're going to be able to hold Burma, given the fact that Chinese can come down into Burma and attack it. And are these fast movers here going to come in? So what Japan might do is do 2 landings next turn, do a landing here to block Britain from coming through, and then that would secure the landing spot for their aircraft. So they're going to have to make a decision there. Again, folks, this is a game of you squeeze the balloon in this over here in this direction, and it seems to get inflated over here. So wherever you don't spend money or head a direction, it seems like the enemies will be coming in behind you or in an opposite direction. The Russians are pushing quite heavily on the eastern Siberia region. They've got 4 armor and about 4 infantry. Japan didn't spend any money there this turn, but however, they're not too worried because there's no victory points up here. The victory points are the victory cities in this game, and they are Shanghai, Singapore, and Calcutta over here. And the Japanese have been so busy, they haven't even taken Philippines the whole game. Can you believe it? So that's something they can do for these transports next turn or the turn after. The hodgepodge fleet of the Australians, the New Zealanders, the Canadians, the British, the Dutch, they only have 2 transports, so they liberated New Guinea. So next turn, depending on what the Japanese do, the Japanese are still at a naval base. They can come back and be here next turn. So that's going to be an interesting standoff happening there, depending on how much Navy the Japanese want to commit to be coming back. But there is no victory points here. So money at this point going into round 11 and round 12, which are the final 2 rounds, don't mean a whole lot. I didn't really decide how long we were going to play first. We could play to 15 rounds, which Japan would not be doing this. And in 15 rounds, maybe Calcutta is on the table. I don't think I'm going to play that long, so we'll have to see what Japan can do in the next 2 turns. So they are going to have to secure the Philippines, definitely, for that is a victory city. And they're going to have to hold on to Singapore and take Calcutta. So it's going to be interesting, folks. Stay tuned for the showdown coming up of round 11 and round 12.